Just like normal. Sorry.
We start with the prayer followed by the pledge. Father God, our hearts turn to you this morning, and we're mindful of the business of the county before us, and we pray for wisdom and direction as we make decisions for our constituents. We pray you would just watch over the president and his wife and heal and restore would be your will. We ask for direction for those in law enforcement, protect them, guide them, and watch over them. Add to this prayer, we pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. Great morning. First item of business is our minutes sent via email. Any alterations or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 3-0. Okay, payroll. Number 20 for calendar year 2020 totals $236,763.51. We had 154 claims, totaling $463,320.99.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 3-0. We have some exciting stuff going on, and we've asked those involved to come forward. Welcome.
Good morning.
Commissioners, members of the public, good morning. I'm Ryan Hoff from the Association of Indiana Counties. I serve as General Counsel and Director of Government Relations for AIC. Happy to be here in Wells County with you all. Once again, I think it was just last year I was here on the same errand, delivering another scholarship check to the child of one of your staff. So, fantastic job, Wells County. We at AIC certainly appreciate your involvement in our association. I would say Wells County punches above its weight in terms of that. Serving on the board, Kevin Woodard, Jared Hahn serves on our board as well, also on our legislative committee. Nate Rumschlag serves on our legislative committee. So again, we certainly appreciate all of your participation. My job here this morning is to introduce Joe Edwards to you from SRI Inc. AIC and SRI have had a long partnership in terms of delivering scholarships to the children of county employees, so we certainly appreciate their involvement. And with that, I will turn it over to him. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. As Ryan said, yeah, we've had a long relationship with AIC and also a long relationship with Wells County. We've been doing tax sales in Indiana for 30 plus years. Enjoyed the partnership with all counties, certainly with Wells County. I remember when we first signed Wells County, so it's been within 20 years, I know, but we've been doing your stuff for a long time and enjoy working with all of you as well as AIC. The good news is, well, I'm here today to present a check to a worthy young man who's a student at Purdue, Jacob Duncan, whose father is Chris Duncan, who works for the Highway Department. SRI gives $400 or $500 scholarships a year, kind of districts, but we're happy that Wells County is zooming in on that and getting it every year, though. That's good. I'd like to give some money back to the community. Jacob went to Southern Wells and is a freshman at Purdue, and we're very happy to present him with a check for $500. Having sent 4 kids through college, every little bit helps. We're glad to do it.
Can we get a picture?
Yes.
Let's get a picture over here against the wall.
Slow hip take today.
Congratulations. That's why we have just back at our. We're gonna get a reflection on this.
Forward.
Thank you. Everyone hold your breath real fast.
Use it wisely.
That's right.
Okay.
Don't tell anybody. Thanks.
I know. Just like I said, breathe forward.
Exciting stuff. Okay. We'll move on to the next one with Scott and the Hummer and what else?
What do you want?
Is there another bid?
There's another bid.
No. You started it.
I feel like I'm gonna
You are caught. Yeah, there you go.
before I pull everything off here. Well, good morning.
Morning.
Good one.
We have our 6,000th bid on the Hummer. It was what, 45.50 last time? We now have one for 5,000 from Ryan Carroll. Till next time.
Maybe we could just make a proclamation that the first one to reach 10 grand, the next one gets it automatically.
Yeah, something. As of this morning, we have 78 inmates in jail. 25 of those are pretrial superior, 21 are pretrial circuit, 20 F6, and 4 DOC. That's kind of where we stand on that. I don't really have, I think Amoresco has come a couple times to keep going on their study. I think I brought that up last time. They were out again last week up on the roof and doing all their assessments up there. So hopefully we see something else on that. I'm going to stick around for the meeting today. I know that there's going to be some discussion with some amendments to the CARES Act money, which I've been utilizing up to this point. I still have about 4 projects, from ultraviolet lighting to video court upgrades through video court, some cameras and our additional cameras in our jail, and some possible upgrades to our intake area were some projects that we were looking at using some of the CARES Act money with. So if some decisions are made there, it'll be a different avenue from what I understand from the auditor about how we'll go about doing that money. I think that'll get discussed later. So those are some of the projects that are still out there. We're looking at Superior Court is coming online with video court. They've agreed to do that. That's where we'll get our most effective, less transports is through Superior Court. So they're willing to come on board with that now. It used to just be circuit. So, but it will take some upgrades to the equipment on both ends and what we have out at our facility to make that happen, which was CARES Act money related. So hopefully we can get all those done. And I know it's getting close to the end of the year and trying to figure out how to get those funds, because as far as I know, there's no extension, especially with the amendment that they had talked about for a while. There was going to be an extension on the CARES Act money through the first quarter of next year, but it sounds like with this amendment that's probably not going to happen. So we only got a short couple of months to make some of those things happen. So other than that, I don't have anything else to report.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Josh, we have you next.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Durapatcher's still out and about, kind of the same as the last month. We will be hand patching south this week and next. Our backhoe crew is done with our north and south notes. Kind of jumped ahead there and got most everything done. We'll finish here in the next week or so with some odds and ends. Things just keep showing up. Little rain the other day may help that. We are today and tomorrow grading gravel roads. First time in quite some time because we do actually have some moisture. So another thing we're doing is just when we go into winter months, our small structures we run around, make sure our delineators are up for our snow plows, and those are just really good indicators for us, so we're not taking things out and damaging equipment. So we're doing a lot of winter prep on that, and then fall harvest is in full swing. We live in a farming community, so I know people are impatient and they don't like to wait 30 seconds sometimes. They think that's going to gain them 5. minutes by waiting 30 seconds, but it's just that time of year. You know, there's farm equipment out on the road, and we just need to be cautious. We don't need the sheriff getting a bunch of calls for accidents and such. Something I didn't put on my agenda, and I just want to kind of throw it out there, and I'm sure you guys have all heard, and there's few in the audience, but Toby Steffen has been a huge part to our county. Huge. He was basically our engineer before Nate. Between Nate and Larry, he helped in several areas on roads, so on and so forth. But he's got a pretty big battle ahead with cancer. It's unfortunate the things I have been hearing about Toby aren't so good with that battle. I don't know the exact details, nor do I want quoted in giving details, but I would like to say from our Wells County Highway Department, like, best wishes for him and his family. I know it's very trying, but he has been a very, very, very big part to our county over his term as being an engineer. I mean, he's done a lot for us and continues to do so. Even till just recently, his
Thanks
diagnosis
for bringing that up, because I was
was
going to bring it up at the end of the meeting.
yeah, Toby's been a big, big part to us. And I've only been around 4 years, but I know he's one of those guys that stops in and may not have any reason, but just to drop off candy to the guys and say thanks. He's just very appreciative and a good soul. So
Yeah.
we're all thinking about Toby. That's it.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Blake, if I could just interrupt just a
Go
moment.
right ahead.
Since Ryan's here, with what the sheriff has said in terms, are you hearing anything additionally from the State House in terms of the CARES Act money extensions?
In terms of the CARES Act, there is, just last week, Congress passed, at least the House passed, a version of an updated amendment to the CARES Act and how it can be spent. I don't personally think that that's going to happen. At the end of the day, it's not going to pass through Congress. It would have awarded some more money, more flexibility, but with the decision by, I think the Senate has already recessed and left town without passing it as well, so I wouldn't expect any change to the CARES Act at this point through the end of the year. And so as was discussed, you have to have spent the money by the end of the year to be eligible for CARES Act. So at this point, I wouldn't expect that to change. We will certainly alert everyone if it does, but yeah, that was correct. That nothing has changed in terms of the spend by date.
Okay. Just to confirm everything, we make sure we don't miss anything for you.
Yeah, the CARES Act is a bit of a moving target this year. Obviously Congress awarded the money to the states. The state then passed it on to local units. And there's been shifting guidance out of Washington as far as how that money can and can't be spent. But I think we're getting late enough in the game to not expect any major changes at this point.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you. Nate, step right up.
Good morning.
Morning.
And before I start, I'll just echo some of the comments that Josh had about Toby. Certainly, I'm not prepared to talk too much about Toby myself. He's a friend and a mentor. Certainly, before I came here, I was in contact and had worked with Toby before, and I'd say he was instrumental in convincing me that Wells County would be a great place to work for and with, and so I count him as definitely instrumental in my career here and the opportunities I've had. I've spent a number of times on project sites that weren't even his designs just because he loved Wells County and what we're able to do. So certainly he's in my thoughts and prayers. So, all right, not actual work updates. Let's see, here we go. All right, I have an update on the local tracks project. We have a contract agreement with NDOT as far as updated cost estimate totals. I'm requesting your approval on that contract. There is a very extensive summary document as far as what they need to have on the signatures to make sure that the agreement is valid. So I'd ask that you probably vote on it now, and then I'll go through signature lines, colors of inks, and things of that sort that we need to have, because and we've even brought multiple copies in case we do it wrong, so we're prepared.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
3-0.
I do have an update on the heat straightening and painting project. This is the 300 West Bridge over the Wabash River. It is still closed currently. The painting and heat straightening has been completed, waiting for the monitoring system to go in. The equipment has been delivered. Installation on that will be going on this week, hopefully starting on Tuesday, possibly Wednesday. I'd say it's about a 48-hour, so it's going to be a 2-day project for install startup. We're going to test it, make sure it works, and once that's done, we'll open the bridge to traffic under the current load restriction. Then at your next commissioner meeting, I hope to have an ordinance prepared that'll essentially raise that weight restriction up after that. So we'll just have a little transition period. Once it's open, it'd be safe for school buses under the current limit anyway, so it'd kind of go back to what it was. And then hopefully we'll be able to have the permanent gantry, height restriction signage, all of that in place in November. So just a little update on that one. The Bridge 304, the White Bridge on 450 East, demolition work is well underway. I actually should be having an extra crew come out to work on the south approach. The rebar should be going in place. If anybody's been out there looking at it, it definitely looks like a big open sore on the south side.
Big crater.
Yes, it's a big hole over there. And so they're going to dig one on the north side now, too. So
Okay.
the demo work will be moving on to the north side. And so far we haven't found any, worst case scenario issues with it. The soils are pretty good, so I think we should be staying on schedule, though I don't have a schedule update from the contractor telling me that we're a week ahead or a week behind. I think we're just right on what they were anticipating. So that's a good sign at this point, and I'm hoping to get rebar in and start getting that formwork done. That's when we're going to start making up some time. So that's our hope there. Wells County RSD, I had a long update for you at the last meeting as far as a preliminary engineering report proposal from Choice 1 to the sewer district. And I made a request on behalf of the sewer district if the commissioners would be willing to grant additional funds towards the district for those PERs, in which phases you were interested in financing of that. I have Leon Burning here in the audience with me on behalf of the sewer district. I wanted to bring that up if you wanted to make a decision on that at this time, or if you wanted to wait on making a decision.
Has the RSD had a meeting since our last commissioner meeting? Maybe not.
No, I don't believe, no, but they have not.
Because we had some questions last time about how long
It would be good for.
and whether it was financially beneficial to do all 5 versus to do them piecemeal. I mean, other than the savings, but
Yeah.
is it?
What you
You
would.
have a recommendation, I guess. is what
Yeah,
we're asking.
well, I guess it really is kind of at your discretion, certainly. I mean, and there are pros and cons. Certainly, there is a limitation of how long that agreement would be good for, that study would be good for, the cost estimates. But what you do get is you do get kind of a countywide plan on some target areas. So rather than all these unincorporated areas essentially are covered within that, barring a few minor exemptions, you'd be able to make that work. But there is a little bit of risk. As long as the sewer district stays proactive and active with those projects, I think all of those study areas will be valuable. It will give the sewer district board information as far as trying to answer public's questions as far as how something would be done, and then they could work on getting agreements, treatment agreements, and find funding as far as when they could be done. So for that purpose, I think it would be valuable to have that completed. But if you just want to target specific areas, certainly I think they understand, because they are essentially coming out hat in hand to seek financing for these other areas.
And what was the exact amount? Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, there's this agreement here, and so
30 compared to 22?
30 versus 22,500. So I mean, it's about $7,500 savings if they did all of them. If that's
For all of them, unless you have a strong feeling.
I think I would too.
I'm almost thinking the same thing. I think it would be better to have it,
Because
even if it's not
versus
Exactly.
starting from scratch.
Exactly, that's what I'm thinking.
Which was what was done with the previous DLZ studies for the sewer district. The PERs that we have today are essentially just springboarding off of a study that was done 18 years ago.
I would make a motion to move forward with the full package at the discounted price.
I would second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
3-0.
And what I'll do is I'll make the presentation to the sewer district board, then they could enter into that agreement subject to receipt of funds. So what I'll have them do is issue an invoice to the county requesting that. So, all right, perfect. Thank you very much. Sewer district board appreciates that in your trust as well. An update, community crossings matching grant. I did submit the applications for Bridge 121 and the guardrail extension for that project. So that's been turned over to INDOT, and I did get confirmation from one of the project managers that they'd received that. I did request an early review just to make sure there wasn't any issues that would potentially hinder that application. I haven't received any comments back yet, so that's a good sign. I'm still waiting on the federal aid application at this point. I know it's not on my agenda here, but that won't open until November, so I'll have updates for you at that time for that meeting. Speed limit ordinance, draft speed limit ordinance has been kind of issued internally amongst the sheriff's office, the police chief, and Josh and myself have been kind of reviewing that. We're looking at different updates and safety improvements. I could target a specific area in like 300 West. We're looking at some areas around Southern Wells, seeing what improvements can be done in those areas as well. So hopefully we'll have some recommendations here ready for a November meeting. And then I'm not sure. I don't have any I have my list for right-of-way dedications, but I don't have any personally that I've received. Have you received any right-of-ways? Okay, so there's nothing for you to approve or accept. So with that, did you have any questions for me?
Thanks.
No, I think we're good.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your
Yep.
time.
Okay. We have a draft agreement with Roy and Tony. Put
yeah.
together.
For the hearing on the Gerhie's appeal, the county ordinance says the hearing panel is supposed to make the rules of procedure, and it's probably not kosher for me to represent the department, and also the hearing panel making the rules for the hearing. So I thought Tony Crowell might be a good person to give the hearing panel some advice, since he had performed in sort of a similar rule on a matter the city of Bluffton had. And so Tony, I talked with Tony, he's agreed, and he's sent, like, who's the client? And I said, well, the hearing panel's the client, but they've got no money, so I think the commissioners ought to be the ones to hire you. So I've got 2 copies of an engagement letter from Tony with respect to his representation of the hearing panel in connection with the Gerhie's appeal. It's $300 an hour, and I'm assuming that, and I sent you an email earlier on what I see that the county spent on my time in the last 2 months on Gerhie's, and hopefully that would qualify for CARES reimbursement, but there's competition for the CARES Act monies. Anyways, I've got 2 copies of the engagement letter. I've reviewed it. I forwarded it to you as well, so perhaps you've already seen that. If you don't have any questions, then I would submit that to the commissioners. Seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
3-0. We'll take care of that at the end. And to Lisa, what do you have for us under miscellaneous?
Joe with SRI is here if you would like to talk to him about a certificate sale after the tax sale, what you need to do if we have properties left over. I know Kathy is concerned about that, and he said he would talk about it with you today if you wanted to, since he's here.
Sure, explain
You
it
have
to
the floor.
us.
We miss you, Joe. We haven't seen you in like a long time.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long
In fact,
time.
I think last time I was here, this was a pretty new building. New for you guys.
I think the last time you were here is when you and I tried to
Yeah,
work through an auditor's issue.
exactly. That's been a while.
That's
Thank
been
you.
like 9 or 10 years
I'm
ago.
glad we haven't had to do anything like that since say.
Yeah,
So-
you're lucky. Lisa, you were not a part of that.
That was before me even.
Yeah,
Right.
not Lisa this time.
That's when we know how, now we know how old we are, Joe.
Oh, yeah, well.
Right.
That shows the gray hair shows.
Right.
Yeah, Kathy and Lisa both have talked to me about the possibility of doing a certificate sale or a deed sale, and I just wanted to, since I was here giving away money, I thought I'd figure out a way to try to make some money.
Explain kind of the basis of that for the newspaper and the general.
Yeah, no,
public as well.
I'll do that because it's confusing enough to confuse everybody in the room. A deed sale is when the county, after tax sale, which we're gonna hold in a couple weeks, all of the remaining properties the certificates become the property of you all. So you'll be the proud owner of some number of certificates the day after the tax sale. And you have a choice of doing several things. You know, you can take them to deed and then sell them at a deed sale. You can have a certificate sale, which also gives you a lot of flexibility. You can give them away to some not-for-profits, 401k or 501(c), and you can also give them to cities and towns, political subdivisions, airports, libraries, whoever might want them. Obviously, the best case scenario is to mix and match those for your benefit, but most counties don't have the resources to do that because it takes some time to go through and make that decision. So what happens is most counties go with either a certificate sale or a deed sale. And certificate sale has always been the most popular because it's cheap and easy, and that's what we all like today. But the deed sale requires the expenditure of not over $500 a parcel for title searches and the noticing that has to be done. So it takes that original commitment, the original investment at probably, in Wells County, probably closer to $350 a piece for each property. And then I can tell you that the counties that do deed sales make the money back to pay those costs. They don't lose money on a deed sale. And the amount they make varies from county to county, but some counties, I use Wayne as an example, Wayne County. I think Ken Paust is the president of your association now, and he swears by the deed sale. That county does. And they've made decent money, and they also have sold everything. We might start a deed sale with 50 or 60 properties and end up with zero when we're done. So they've had great success there, get enough money back, plus some. So it's been a great way for them to return properties to the tax roll. Certificate sale is a little different in that you're giving that work to the buyer of the certificate sale. You don't have to do noticing, you don't have to do title searches. That's all done by the buyer of the certificate. The statute allows you to set that price at anything you want it to be, as long as it's less than the original price at the tax sale. So we've got counties that do them for $25. We've got some that do it $49.99, which was not a great idea in terms of keeping track of the numbers. I mean, we want even numbers. So Earl Scheib car painting, I think, is mine. So, but the prices just range, but you can set the prices. The goal, obviously, is not to make money at the certificate sale, to return properties to the tax rolls. So you keep that number as low as you can because you want people to show up and bid. And some counties do a percentage of that amount, of the amount originally offered at the tax sale, and those tend to be too high sometimes, and so people don't show up. You've got vacant lots next to somebody's house. They'll be willing to pay $50 or $100 for that, because they're then going to have to pay a lawyer, title company, and do the real work. So they may be more apt to buy a deed, because nobody likes to deal with lawyers, nobody likes to deal with title companies. So they can buy a deed and actually get the deed for $500, let's say, and they're willing to do that quicker. And it may be a lot that they've used, that they're mowing and maintaining, that they've got a garden on or a play gym or whatever, and they're not going to buy it for the tax sale cost, because the tax sale cost is always much higher than most people will pay for a vacant lot, because it's several years of taxes.
Right, yeah, in arrears.
Yeah. And at least by the time you guys get the certificates, they're at least 2 years behind in taxes. So, yeah, so they're not, and none of them are cheap at that point. And if there's been any liens, mowing liens, demolition liens, suddenly the price is through the roof and nobody's gonna pay that. For a lot they're already using, especially, and know that they're not gonna have it, they're the only ones that are gonna buy it, so. And as I was telling Lisa and Kathy, the deed sale, one of the worst problems about the deed sale requires quick action by you guys. Like pretty much immediately after that, after the tax sale, those certificates obviously go to you. But to do the deed sale, you've got 90 days to send out certified mail notices to all the people that have substantial property interest, which are identified by the title search. So there's work that has to be done fairly quickly. And most of those notices for the counties we do, it's around Christmas time, and our staff's not very happy about the fact that Delaware County wants to send out 300 notices on Christmas Eve, but that's the way the calendar falls. So, so within 90 days of your sale, those notices have to be prepared and sent out for a 120-day redemption period for the owners. Any questions?
So you send out the notices?
Yes.
Do you get the title search or we get the title search?
Well, we prefer you guys get the title search, just because it's local title companies, and whether you have 2 or 3 and you want to bid them out, but
Part of the issue, and you might have touched on it, part of the issue is that there are a number of properties on the tax sale list that have extraordinary demolition costs from the city. Like the city condemns a building, or declares it unsafe building, the owner won't tear it down, so the city tears it down and sends the county saying we, add $17,000 to that. It isn't going to sell, and you can't sell at a tax sale for less than the required bid.
right.
So the only way that I see, or at least a way of clearing title, is to have the county get it at a tax sale. Or in this case, as I read the statute, it looks like if the city certified a demolition cost, there was something about a 6-month period for the city to ask for a tax sale certificate. Is that right?
I don't think there's a time frame. Obviously, if the county's moving forward to get a deed, and at any time that the commissioners decide to give that property, either before there's a
Well,
deed.
statute I looked at had a time frame, but it gave the municipality a head start. They might have had a period of time for them to do it. So it looked like for the county, you said the notices have to go out almost immediately after you get the sale certificate. It's time for the issuance of the sale certificate,
90 days, yeah.
but not the tax sale.
The certificate is given to the commissioners
I understand that.
immediately, but
Immediately?
you can assign those certificates to a not-for-profit at any time, and that starts the redemption period fresh. And likewise to a political subdivision. So if you gave one to the city of Bluffton, whenever you give it to them, that starts the 120 days redemption period, whenever you assign the certificate.
Okay, it looked to me like they might have had a head start in being able to get a certificate. I've been in communication with the city attorney and the mayor, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. So, but that's the problem. There's a number of properties that are just never going to sell for the required minimum bid because of the demolition costs have been added to the tax bid. So anyways, if the commissioners wanted to do this, you'll do the notices, the county gets the title search,
Yes.
and what's the cost of the county for you performing
Our
that
contract
service?
for a certificate sale is 15% if it's a live sale, 10% if it's an online sale, and with a deed sale, 15%.
All right, so it's a percentage of what the sale price is,
Sale price.
not a
Right.
flat fee for the
But
service.
the notices are $100 a parcel. On a deed sale, on a certificate sale, there's no expense other than the newspaper ads. There's no certified mail notice like the tax sale. It's just the newspaper
What
ads.
date do we have that scheduled?
The tax sale?
Yeah, it's like,
It's
Halloween
The
or
29th or the 30th.
Yeah.
it's usually late in October.
and then what is the deadline for them to have it paid so they're not on it?
That day.
10 o'clock.
Is it that day? Is that by code, or can that be adjusted in an ordinance or resolution?
I think
I mean, like,
Kathy discusses that with
okay.
them.
Yeah, I mean, every county pretty much, if somebody's standing at their counter with cash, they take it. I mean, right up until the time of the sale, so.
And all counties that you know of do
Yeah.
the same thing?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't, like, 2 days ahead? Or
Well, they set that date, like in the notices, but it's more of a suggestion, because
Gotcha.
obviously the treasurer's job is to collect taxes, and they, everybody would prefer the owners pay their taxes than have them lose their property, so
Yeah,
they take the money right up until 10 o'clock, almost every county.
gotcha.
Yeah, your sale is the 26th. I think we did it that Monday because there was an auditors conference that week that they're still moving forward with. Any other
Appreciate
questions?
the
Good?
explanation.
Oh, thanks,
Sure,
Joe.
and-
Very good.
And Lisa can get with me at any point if you got other questions, or Kathy, either one. Of course, I'll be here for that sale too. Looking forward to that.
Very good.
I don't-
Appreciate it.
Here, I don't come to Wells County hardly at all, and I'm coming twice in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Joe has been around a long time, and SRI comes highly recommended. So,
Thank you for that.
you're welcome.
I'm not thank you for the first part, but the second one.
Yeah, the long. Go Yankees, right, Joe?
Got my pinstripes on.
I saw 'em. I saw 'em.
All right, Lisa, what else?
Okay, CARES Act funds. We have $612,000 and some change that we have left to be reimbursed, some of which they're still working on. Custodian has some expenses, and so does he, basically $100,000. But we can now get reimbursed for payroll expenses, which I could do in one shot. And what would happen with that money that we're reimbursed for, it would go into the CARES Act fund, and then by ordinance, you could transfer that into the general fund, which could then be used for his outstanding expenses, the custodian's outstanding expenses, Roy's outstanding expenses for the litigation, by an additional appropriation.
But-
So, yes.
Not to interrupt, but I will. Sorry. But, so funding, and I know, Ryan, you can help me on this. So funding to cover employee expenses, et cetera, is, in a sense, separate from what we are working towards in a CARES Act. Is it kind of run parallel? We're not taking away CARES Act money to pay employees. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, no problem. So the U.S. Treasury Department and the United States Inspector General have finally come to agreement on what they meant when they said public safety personnel expenses are presumed eligible. So basically, what U.S. Treasury is saying, and the state is going along with, is that any of your public safety personnel costs from March 30th to December 31st are presumed eligible as expenditure that meets the CARES Act requirements.
Right.
So essentially, what that allows counties as the pass-through entity to do is submit any amount of money that you have expended on or are going to be expending on a payroll cost for public safety for, I'm sure, every county in the state. Your allocation can be consumed by that amount. Your personnel costs exceed your allocation. So any further amount of money, you can just, like she said, in one packet, submit that as the remaining claim, right? You get reimbursed up to your allocation limit, and then you can transfer that into your general fund and then use that money to pay your outstanding expenses, what have you, because at that point it's general fund dollars.
Because we've already paid for personnel.
because it's been paid out.
It's a reimbursement.
Right.
And you can also, like I'm doing all sheriff and jail, so I could go through payroll and mess that around and put it back in his line items, but then it would be all his. By
Right.
doing it with an ordinance and putting it in the general fund, then we can use it for everything.
I just want to make sure that what we're moving forward with the sheriff, with what we've set up to do prior to the reimbursement with, employee costs.
Doesn't diminish what he's trying to
Correct.
accomplish.
But we still have to go through, now it forces us to go through transfers, additional
Correct.
appropriations.
Right.
Now we have to wait.
If it goes around like this and comes back and ends up here, and then we start transferring back and forth,
Then
then
the council could deny the request.
that's where I'm going. Not that I know that they would do that, but the way it's moving forward at this point, that's transparent. It's coming in, it gets paid back. Now we have employee costs going here, and I guess that's where I drag my feet a little bit.
Do we know, Scott, since you're here, about what dollar amounts? we're
Thanks,
considering?
Ryan. I appreciate this.
Yeah.
Like,
What dollar amounts do you think where you're at?
project-wise?
Right.
Well, it just depends. I mean, we were on an avenue that we were gonna have a surplus of about $500,000 left. So we were looking at the possibility of an intake, some remodeling in our intake to add additional isolation cells. So an architect firm's we've been working together to try to get a dollar amount to see what we could use for the CARES Act money towards that, which was through conversation with the IFA and everybody else was basically an acceptable project because it was all COVID related. So I have about 4 other projects in line. I don't know what other agencies have, but we were getting close to everybody kind of had their finalized projects. I probably, out of the 4 that I have left, I probably have about $100,000 of projects that were going to go
Bobby had
towards
about
reimbursement.
50. But one thing they did say in the webinar that I watched last week was that they are not doing any construction. They aren't even considering any construction claims. They would prefer to have it done this way, and then we reimburse from our own funds.
So the target keeps moving, is that what you're telling me? Because before we were kind of good to go through the other way.
Yeah, well, so IFA has now said that because you have 700 local units who are sending in receipts just as a paperwork effort, they're going to be processing all these payroll claims first. If it comes down to making a decision one way or the other, they're putting those to the side until they process all of the personnel claims to make sure that everyone gets their money within the time frame. If it's going to be a decision, and even if IFA has already said that they think it's going to be allowed, that's going to be kind of put to the side for not indefinitely, right? Because it's all got to be done by the end of the year. But they said we're going to process the payroll claims to hopefully close out the vast number of local units who are making applications to the fund, and then we'll get back to these.
So
It sounds like this may be the safest way to get all of our money, otherwise we're leaving it on the table.
that's just what I
potentially.
heard, yeah. Yeah.
That's-
So,
yeah.
so,
It's better to deal with it internally in Wells County.
so what
than
I'm,
it is to
yeah,
leave it
so,
at the state.
yeah. So in a nutshell, what we've been working on gets put here, and we run everything through payroll first, and it goes into you, and you get the general fund, and then you apply for an additional appropriation to in fact come back and take that money that we paid employees first, or payroll, to get the money to do what we need to
But
do at the jail.
unfortunately, it's not just his department, otherwise it would probably be clean enough. but
Correct. It's
the
all
other two
the very-
departments
right.
that won't get any if we do it that way.
Right.
Yes, yes.
But it's not like I'm really getting it. We already have the budget to pay our people, right? It's in our budget. This is an additional, it can go in there.
That's why it works, because the people
Yeah,
have already
'cause then
been
it goes-
paid, so
Right.
this is getting
Even if it did go
reappropriated.
into my budget, it would go back to general fund at the end of the year anyways, if I didn't
Okay. Right.
transfer it out and, to
For it,
pay
yeah.
certain things with.
Right.
yes.
Okay.
I mean, you're just using my department.
Because it was
Correct.
Big
Right.
enough.
Right.
It's bigger than what's left.
It is. Right.
It's a mechanism to take the dollars that you have in your CARES allocation, get it out of that CARES world into your general fund, and then it's
And then you can see fit.
But is the restrictions off at that point then?
right because you're
now it
being
doesn't have to be
reimbursed.
That's what it sounds like.
Personnel costs.
Because it was already COVID related.
We started out with the COVID related. Now we're removing that to get it cleaned up.
Yeah, when it came out, wasn't it supposed to be, this is not supposed to replace your general tax revenue, but costs above and beyond because of COVID?
That's right.
And now we said,
And
forget that, never
be-
mind.
Because they've said it's presumptively eligible, so anything that you all say was spent on COVID-19 response in terms of public safety personnel, up to your entire
Right.
budgeted amount, is applicable for CARES Act.
Can they
So-
take it back if they change their mind? Because there's been some things in other places that will give it, but then they'll like, we might take it back later.
No, I don't.
So as long as we use it for this, we don't
I-
have a chance of them taking it back.
And what's our time frame? I mean, can this be next meeting or first meeting in November, or does it need to be dealt with
I would
pretty much immediately?
do it as soon as possible. The sooner the better.
Okay.
Now, because Wells County has its allocation sitting there with IFA.
Right.
They can't award other people your dollars. But
But if we don't use it, it goes back to the state.
but if you don't use it, it actually ends up going back to the federal government.
Ultimately through.
But at some point, the state's not going to want that money to go back to the federal government, and because it was the state's decision to award $300 million to local government, if you get down to the dying days, they might say, "Look, you haven't spent it. We have costs. We don't want to see that money go back to the federal government." So I would say the sooner the better. It's October. You certainly don't want to get into December and still have.
Right.
No, I
Rather
think
fight
that's the
county
thing.
council than the state government.
Yeah, Bobby's already got
If you
her
approve
additional
it-
form filled
yeah,
out,
if
so
you
that
approve
she'll
it
get
now, I
it in
mean,
November.
The problem is being towards the end of the year, with it being a reimbursable account, we're paying out of our budget and getting reimbursed, and then it gets put back in, but we're towards the end of the year, so a lot of our accounts are running dry. And some of the projects I have, I don't have the funding in my budget to pay for it in advance, but right now, and a transfer is due on the 14th of this month.
Right, but like
For
Bobby.
November.
Yes, Bobby knows what she's gonna need, so she's already filled out her additional form, that's due next week for November. So he could do the same thing, he could say, I'm gonna have 100,000 in, expenses, can I have an additional? So he can do that in November and get his things paid for,
Knowing that there'll be,
yeah.
Right.
yeah,
As long as we have 7 in unison, or
yeah.
four of the 7.
And I've sent some of
unison.
mine in for pre-approval, and she said it looks good, so all I have to do is send it in and.
Like you said, it's more just moving the paperwork around to get it in line. And council should be on board with that easy.
I sure would hope so.
I mean, there's no reason not to. It's
Exactly.
all there. Just it's a paperwork formality of it.
Right.
My other question, I sent out a letter, as you know, to all the townships at the start of this, and I haven't gotten anything back. Do you want me to do anything?
I thought
Further.
the answer was no, we don't need to.
No,
I don't think so.
No.
no,
Okay.
You've done your
They've-
due diligence.
right.
Okay. That's all I
They had
had.
their opportunity.
Okay, you good with what we got to deal with?
I get it. It's
Okay.
more work on the back end for us.
Right, exactly.
That's the way we're doing it. My only objection is, we do our best to keep costs low, even though it's money that was given to us.
Right.
And, I don't want to spend it just to spend it, but I want it to have a purpose and be useful. But I just don't want the council to scrutinize everything we do, because now it's under the control of asking for an additional appropriation.
Now, the groundwork to me has been already. You've set the groundwork for what the projects were, where we're moving forward on it. This has been public for a long time going forward, so
Yep.
it's just now it's a formality of putting everything in place
Right.
to go. Okay.
So are we doing an ordinance then? So it goes into general, or is it going into my budget?
No, No, if you want it to be put into the general fund, out of the CARES Act funds, then I'll need an ordinance to move that, to transfer that money after we get reimbursed.
And that's
If
what I
you
think
want it
is
in the general
the
fund.
safest.
If we want it in the general
Get it.
fund.
Not that we want it in the general fund,
Yeah,
we just don't want to
exactly.
lose it someplace else.
If we would like to have some say what it goes to, but, I mean, just,
Well, that's my point without knowing. Do the commissioners control the CARES money until it's in the general fund and then it's council and you gotta be doing appropriations?
Right.
the way it sounds.
That's what you're
Right.
saying.
My thought exactly.
That's where, I think we're all in
Just
that.
caught up with it.
My thought
That's exactly where we're
If it
at.
goes into my budget, you still have to do the same thing, right? You still take their vote to.
Can we
But to explain, well,
divide
yeah,
it in
it's
two
in general
segments?
fund, but it really was
Yeah, but
paid back.
450,000
If his
into
goes
the
in
general and
his,
the
can we get the
remainder
other-
for expenditures?
I
Why
think
can't you do
whatever-
both?
I think whatever you're getting reimbursed for, like this is all from the general fund. So in my pea-sized brain, I think that they think it needs to go back into the general fund.
Right, I understand that, but if we don't want it to go in the general fund and we want it to go directly to him, can you turn in his expenses and Bobby's expenses and everything separately and make it go into their funds without having to use it
It'd have to be
through the salary?
appropriated into their budgets.
Oh,
So there's no way to just put it back in his fund, is what you're saying. Not through that, it would be different paperwork that you would have to clean through a different, like, you'd have to submit his directly to the CARES to get it approved.
Yeah, we'd have to turn in additionals.
You'd have to do all
For
that
all of it.
paperwork
Yeah.
Yes.
for every individual thing that you've done.
Yeah.
Is the only other way to get it.
I can understand if it's already been paid out of general fund, I can understand putting it in general fund. Doesn't hurt.
Right.
If it's something to be spent,
But it's sort of both. It's the money for the salary came out of the general fund, but the salary's been paid, so now when it goes back in the general fund, it has to be recycled into the projects they want. Which is logical to all of us, but not necessarily logical to the council.
well, in good faith, I think with what we're doing as the council's on board, I think they've been supportive of what's needed to be done with the CARES Act. I don't think that's I don't feel I mean, we have to go about it the way we need to go about it. And I
Right.
think that the council's on board to do
It
what's in the
doesn't sound
best
like there's an
of
alternative.
public safety and
I would think so. I
Yeah.
would think so. If we act
And we
on it
appreciate
today,
their
will they act
support.
on it tomorrow or at the first meeting in November?
I mean, they don't have to do anything. I'm just gonna tell them, explain what's going on.
Gotcha.
But they don't have, they just have
Only
to approve the
until.
additionals.
Gotcha. That's right.
then we do the ordinance
So
or whatever.
motion to approve the ordinance
Yeah,
for that.
second.
That was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0.
So stinking difficult. Okay. What else? Anything else?
So we have advertised for a Peterboa board, and I did not receive anything. Just FYI.
Thank you.
So the one inquiry you asked me about is not interested or not going to,
Yeah.
okay.
I did get an inquiry from Columbia City, the alcohol board, in regards to our vacancy. I acted to him that in June of next year, the eligible candidate willing to serve would be eligible. And I said we might just continue until that date with the vacancy, so.
Okay.
I've not heard back from him yet, but. Other than that, anything else?
Nothing.
Tam, Jessica?
Given that there was no executive session scheduled for today, I'm a little concerned about this impromptu meeting with Marlene upstairs. So can we have a recap of what was discussed? Was it about hiring the attorney for the hearing?
No,
Absolutely not. It was
No.
about
Funding.
funding,
for testing
their
sites.
funding and finding a site to use for a COVID clinic. They received some funding, but they're having trouble finding a site.
And confirmation on the amount of deaths
Yeah, she
and
just filled in some
confirmed
information about
cases.
that,
Are you aware of how many that is currently?
Is that,
It's four.
Four.
Four
Four
deaths.
confirms, 200 and
70.
Yeah,
That sounds right.
is what it is.
Do we have a date for that hearing, Roy?
No,
Well, that and we asked
their
for
attorney
feedback.
isn't even
agreement.
employed
Yeah.
until now.
Right.
Going
Not
to.
yet.
And
They're gonna
he
bring them
wants to, Tony wants to meet with the panel. We know who the panel is. He wants to meet with the panel, go over that, and then I presume he will be getting in touch with me and with the appellant's counsel to try to schedule a hearing.
Who are the panel members?
Dr. Bales from the board, Bill Horan from the extension office, and it's not it's a retired nurse, it's an LPN, Marcia Meyer, who I guess I understand, I don't know her, but I think she's also the Lancaster Township trustee. So those are the three members of the hearing panel. And we'll see what the rules are. I know he has said he's talked with the public access counselor in terms of a meeting and and covering it live stream and this and that. So that's all. I mean, that's up to date as much as I can tell you.
Then we set up flu shots if you want to get one with us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for the board?
Ryan, thank you for your information.
Actually, I
Yes.
do have one quick question. The courthouse clock, is it still missing its hands on the east side?
Mhm.
And what are we waiting on there? Do we know? Is Bobby working on that, or it's
Yeah, I
been?
think there's got sent somewhere, I don't know.
I think they have to be to a certain person because they're so old and how they're handled and
I was just curious. People kind of ask.
It was
for a while,
questioned,
so
right.
That could be a news story.
Missing hands.
Missing hands.
all right, hearing nothing else. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are done.